On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the featherweight main card fight rebooked for UFC 310 between Movsar Evloev and Aljamain Sterling. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles, and then I'm going to give you my pick at the end of this, or I should say my prediction. Some of the stuff may have relevance, it may not. I'll let you decide that. I want to get your prediction for this fight at the end, and we can have a discussion about it. Of course, this fight's supposed to be taking place at UFC 307, which just passed at the time we're talking about this fight, so happy they rebooked it, and we have something to talk about here today on Early Look. Let's do a quick tail of the tape like we usually do. 30 years old for Evloev, 35 years old for Sterling, 5'7" apiece, 72.5 to 71. So you'll see there Evloev a little bit younger here by like 5 years. They're both the same height and a little bit of a reach advantage there for Evloev as well. Let's start first though with the former bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling, second straight fight in the featherweight division. That is his new home since leaving the bantamweight weight class. I mentioned it again, this is only a 3-round fight, not a 5-round fight, which is kind of interesting, although kind of makes sense. Sterling, you can see there, 24-4 record. He's got 3 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 12 decisions. Mentioned it there, 34 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach, so no major advantages in this fight as far as age, height, or reach. He's had 2 title defenses as the bantamweight champion, trains at Cerro Longo and Syndicate MMA. He's had 3 successful title defenses at bantamweight. He's got most consecutive title defenses in UFC bantamweight division history at 3. He's tied with Dominic Cruz and Renan Barão for second most title fight wins in UFC bantamweight division history at 4. Sterling had an amateur debut, or made his amateur debut way back in May of 2009, made his pro debut in April of 2011, made his UFC debut in February of 2014, so not that long after the pro debut, and that was against Cody Gibson. Which is an interesting fight. Sterling is 16-3 in the UFC. He's got 7 stoppage victories. Some of those wins include Renan Barão. Brett Johns, I included that on there because Johns was undefeated at the time. Cody Stamann, who was 17-1 at the time. Jimmy Rivera was a ranked opponent. That was a good win. He's also beat Pedro Munoz, Corey Sandhagen, one of the few guys to beat Corey Sandhagen, and he has 2 wins over Piotr Jan, one a bit more controversial than the other, and also has wins over TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo, and most recently defeated Calvin Kattar at UFC 300 in his featherweight debut in the UFC. He has some notable losses as well. These are all at bantamweight: Brian Caraway, Rafael Sunsao, and Marlon Moraes. So those are some of the losses that he's had as well. Sterling's had a number of injuries throughout his career. We're not going to go through all of them, but just keep in mind this fight was supposed to take place, like I mentioned, at UFC 307. Sterling had another injury. Those injuries do add up a little bit. He's had a few. He had a neck injury, which, if you remember, was supposed to fight Piotr Jan in October of 2021, had a neck injury there, and then he also had an injury back in 2014. He was supposed to fight Mitch Gagnon, a fight that never ended up happening. Sterling's had a few layoffs in his career. We'll quickly go through those. Going from Brian Caraway, this is way back in 2016, going from Caraway to a Sunsao, there's a 244-day layoff. Going from Pedro Munoz to Corey Sandhagen, there was a 364-day layoff. Going from Sandhagen to Piotr Jan, there was a 273-day layoff. And then going from the first Jan fight to the second Jan fight, there was a 399-day layoff. But since then, which was 2022, he's been pretty consistent, fighting quite often, and this will be his second fight in 2024. You can also see he's done a bit of grappling as well. He's had a couple close fights. We don't need to go through those. Except the one I will mention is the Henry Cejudo fight. That was back at UFC 288. If you go look on MMA Decisions, the site where you can see where the media score fights, you can see 21 media members scored the fight for Sterling, 2 scored it for Cejudo. So while it was a split decision, most did feel like Sterling got it done. Let's look at the stats for Aljamain Sterling on this one. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.61. His striking accuracy is at 52%. He's got some good stand-up. Striking defense is at 58%, doesn't get hit too much. His takedown average is 2.31. His takedown accuracy is only at 27%, and his takedown defense is at 45%. Very interesting in this fight as he faces a fellow grappler here in Movsar Evloev. And without further ado, let's talk about his opponent, Movsar Evloev. Still undefeated in the UFC at 18-0. So Movsar Evloev, what do we know about him? He's got 3 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 11 decisions in his career. Currently ranked, I think I had it written down wrong here. Movsar Evloev is currently ranked, at the time we're doing this, number 5 in the division. Aljamain Sterling ranked number 9. Forgot to mention that. He is 30 years old. He is 5'7" with a 72.5-inch reach. So a little bit of a reach advantage for him there. He's about 5 years younger than Aljamain Sterling. He's the former M1 bantamweight champion. So that kind of interesting, thought I'd mention. Obviously Sterling, a former bantamweight. So is Evloev. He used to fight at bantamweight as well. So you even look at the height and reach, it's not a huge difference there. So anyone thinking like, Evloev's going to be some, big guy in the cage against Sterling. I don't think that's going to be the case. He's got fight of the night one time against Diego Lopez. He's tied with Enrique Barzola for third most takedowns landed in UFC featherweight division history at 37. Evloev did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros in November of 2014, made his UFC debut in April of 2019, getting a win over Seung-Woo Choi. What else? He is 8-0 in the UFC. Some notable wins include Dan Ige, who has been ranked before Diego Lopez. Very good win that's aged well, although that was short notice for Lopez. And Arnold Allen, most recently back in January. He's had a couple injuries as well. If you remember, he had a motorcycle accident. He was supposed to fight at UFC 248 against Jamal Emmers. Ended up withdrawing due to that and hasn't seen any lingering effects from that. Here's one that I forgot about. He was supposed to fight Ilia Topuria back in 2022. Ended up withdrawing due to undisclosed reasons. Imagine if that fight ended up happening. Could still happen in the future. And then Bryce Mitchell was supposed to fight him actually a couple times. Had an injury the first time, and I think the second time Mitchell pulled out. Yeah, he had a back injury, so never got to see that one. He's also had a few layoffs in his career. If you go from Hakeem Dawodu, where's that fight? Hakeem Dawodu to Dan Ige, there's a 357-day layoff. Going from Dan Ige to Diego Lopez, there's a 336-day layoff. And then going from Lopez to Arnold Allen, there's a 259-day layoff. He's going to be fighting for the second time this year, having fought in January. He's had a couple close fights. That Enrique Barzola fight, I referenced it there. That was in October of 2019. 5 media members scoring the fight for Evloev, 4 scoring it for Barzola. So much closer than a unanimous decision, maybe. But here's one that people talk about, his last fight, Arnold Allen. A lot of people felt like Allen won that. I actually went back and looked at the scorecards for that one on MMA decisions. Majority of people thought Evloev won. 1 media member scoring it a draw. Don't know why. Don't think it was a draw at all. And there's obviously 5 media members scoring the fight for Arnold Allen. So again, not the most appealing fight, but and that's partially the reason that Evloev's not getting the title shot. They feel like he needed one more fight. Let's go look at the stats for Movsar Evloev. Very impressive. 4.43 strikes landed per minute. 48% striking accuracy. Striking defense is at 61%. His takedown average is at 4.75, so it's a little bit higher than Sterling, right? He's only at 2.31. And his takedown accuracy is at 46%. Takedown defense is at 71%, and his sub average is at 0.02. Right now, unfortunately, at the time we're doing this, we do not have odds on the fight because it just got rebooked. And we also don't have picks on Tapology, which is the first time that's happened here on the show. I'm wondering if they had it for, actually, I don't think they'd have it on here anyway. Yeah, I was going to say maybe I go back to 307 and they'd have the picks for there. But actually, you know what? Let's check right now. I am curious about that. Take a quick second here. UFC 307. Let's see if they have the picks from the first fight. Now, granted, Sterling. By the way, this fight was supposed to take place at UFC 307. Sterling had an injury. Just very, very quick to point out here. And how were people scoring that one? So yeah, 59% of people picking Evloev, 41% picking Sterling. I don't know what the odds are going to be on this one. I would imagine that Evloev will be a slight favorite. But it's going to be close because I think these guys are very similar, right? In terms of their style and everything. Sterling's got more stand-up. I'd say he's more of a striker. But again, very, very, very close fight between these two. Okay, which way am I going on this one? Like I said, very tough fight. I've had a number of people ask me my pick on this one. I got to go Movsar Evloev in this fight. Now, here's why. A couple of reasons, okay? First and foremost, the reason I'm going decision, well, it's a 3-round fight. So if you look at Movsar Evloev, 61% of his fights are by decision. He has not got a finish in the UFC, which is pretty interesting. And, it's not like he's fought like the best opposition out there too. So, I think the criticisms of him not being a finisher are very fair. Sterling's only been finished twice in 28 career fights. He's fought guys that have some serious, finishing ability. He's only been finished twice. I doubt Evloev's going to be the guy to finish him, honestly. I don't think that's going to happen. So that's why I'm leaning more towards decision. One thing we got to talk about with Sterling, and I referenced it there, Sterling's had a number of injuries, including the one that, had to move this fight a bit. I do wonder about that. Sterling had a tough cut to 135. You think that's got to take its toll. And Sterling's 5 years older. I think that's another negative against him here. So, injuries. Also, he's been in a few fights, like the Pedro Munoz fight, for example, where he did take some damage in that one. That has to add up. He's 35 years old, but if you actually look at how many fights he's had and who he's been in there with, he's had 28 fights. There's some accumulation there, for sure. I honestly think that Evloev is the better grappler overall. You can disagree with me on that one. That's fine. But what he does works. It might not be the prettiest thing, but it does end up getting it done. The only worry I have here is if for some reason Evloev can't control Sterling, I think Sterling would win this if it was just a straight striking battle. So I'm not writing Sterling off in this fight. I don't want people to think otherwise. I just think that like Evloev will neutralize that and it won't be a thing in this fight. The other thing that I look at too, and I've kind of always been this way if you watch my live streams, is that Evloev's the mainstay in the weight class. He's been at featherweight for a long time. I think that's another plus for him. It's not like, and granted, Evloev used to be a bantamweight, but in the UFC, he's been a featherweight. So he's been in there with guys that are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. Now, do I think he's going to be, like I said, bigger or stronger against Sterling? No, but he's at least felt what it's like to be in there with a lot of featherweights. Sterling's got one featherweight fight against Calvin Kattar. And honestly, Calvin Kattar, older fighter, taking a ton of damage throughout his career. Like, it's a good win. It's a ranked win, but you're not getting the old Calvin Kattar. You're not getting the Calvin Kattar before Max Holloway. He was favored in that fight. Kattar was 36 in that one. I don't know. Like, it's a good win, but it's, it doesn't give me much encouragement that, he's going to go in there and beat a guy like Evloev. And yeah, so I think we just have more to work with Evloev at featherweight, whereas we don't with Sterling. And I just think when the simplest way I can say this is I think Evloev's the better grappler, and that's going to be the difference in this fight. So I think Evloev goes out there, gets it done, and then he might have to fight again, might not. I mean, I'm pretty sure Volkanovski's going to fight the winner of Max Holloway and Ilia Topuria that's coming up here pretty soon at the end of the month. So I don't know what they're going to do with Evloev. Does he fight Diego Lopez again? I don't know. That's another thing, Diego Lopez with the run he's been on. Maybe he leapfrogs Evloev. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think Evloev needs to get a finish if he wants to leapfrog Lopez, but I think most likely this fight goes the distance. Like I said, Sterling's only been finished twice in 28 career fights. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. I want your prediction, not your pick. It's very easy to pick fights, a little bit more harder to predict fights. So which way do you think this is going? Regardless, if you're on the Sterling side, I'd like to hear how you think he gets it done. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell on this video. It really does help things out. And let me know if there's any other fights you want me to preview. Again, this is not a main event or anything. It's a main card fight on UFC 310, but it's an important fight for the division. I like covering fights like this, and Sterling's a former champion. I think it was very much the fight worth discussing. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any other suggestions for fights you want me to preview, let me know. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.